Welcome. This week we're going to be drawing portraits. Whenever I start drawing portraits, I always like to break down all of the face into different features. And so we're going to do that. We'll start with cross contour drawings of facial features. We'll be doing 4 pairs of eyes first. So what I'm looking at here are eyes through glasses, and they're also shut. So we're going to be looking at eyelids closed. Um, I find that it's good to draw in the glasses so that I can arrange everything inside the glasses correctly by proportion and their distance from the each corner and the inside of the glasses. So you can see here I've got curved lines that kind of show the eyelids, and so in this next one, eyes are wide open, and I'm going to draw the entire eyeball and then cover it with the eyelids themselves. And the reason I do that is so that I can kind of show that curvature and the shape of the eyelids, because they lay over the eyeball and kind of discreetly disguise it. The inner corner of the eyes has the formation that indicates the tear duct, and the outer corner is usually much simpler. So look at the configuration of that, and the eyebrows, um, and make sure that the eyebrows are going in the right direction. The construction of the eye can be um, uh, seen clearly from all these different sides. Moving on to the mouth. Um, when you're drawing the mouth, first pay attention to the inner and outer edges of the lips. The strongest line on any mouth, whatever its shape, is usually where the lips part. And this line will be very definite, clear cut, and it'll extend the whole length of the mouth. So from side to side, uh, uh, like this, it's a little bit more obvious. The outer edges of the lips should not be drawn so strongly. Here, I'm drawing an ear, and ears can be very tricky. They have a lot of convolutions, and you know, it's going to take some practice. Again, looking at this eye, the lower lid must be drawn faintly, uh, and there are fewer lashes, and the lower lid drops. Um, the lower lid, because it faces upward, reflects the light, and it appears to be a little bit brighter. The upper lid looks darker and heavier because it's facing downwards, and the lashes are thicker. So moving on to the next. So I want you to fill the page with these. It might take more than one page to do. So I want 4 ears, 4 noses, and 4 mouths, and 4 pairs of eyes. So here's 4 ears, just laid in cross contour, and some lips and mouths as well. Um, and you can build this cross contour. Here I am working in pen. You can build this cross contour through cross hatching uh, with a pen or a pencil that start to build up your value that you're going to need for doing this again. You're going to do a whole set of eyes, ears, nose, and mouths in value as well. So here again, looking at a nose. Noses can be very tricky, especially when they're drawn from the front. So this one is a profile nose, but this next one here is going to be drawn from the front. Be careful not to make it too long. Look carefully at the width of the central ridge, because it will determine the depth of the shadow cast on either side. The deepest shadow shown around the nose from the front is usually in the corner near the eye and the eyebrow. There's like the eyebrow ridge up there. The nostril can crease between the cheek and the nose, um, and that can be often very distinct, uh, as well as the nostrils themselves will be shaded in. Make sure to get the shape of the nostril correct, or it may look like different nose. So here I've done more. I've kind of gone crazy with adding a bunch of these cross contour. I save you a little time and um, not show you the whole process, but this is kind of what I'm looking for. Fill the page with as many of them as possible. And when you've done that, so do that first. Come back and try it again with other lips, noses, ears, um, and eyes. Do it in value. So when you're doing it in value, I'm looking for you to kind of build up the shadow. You can be drawing your lines in that cross contour direction, but here I'm looking for less lines and more shading. So turn your pencil a little bit more on its side and build those tonal values. And don't be afraid to get dark. You can push the dark as much as possible, then come back and erase. Um, and don't be afraid to uh, you know kind of exaggerate the light and the shadow a little bit, especially if your subject has um, kind of an even flat light. So here you can see I've really pushed the highlights and the shadow to give it more contrast and direction and give it a little bit more form and shape. So that's what I'm looking for when it comes to doing these in value. Here I've laid in a nice even gray. Uh, I would suggest this one drawing ears. It makes drawing ears a lot easier if you have a kind of a neutral gray um, as a base, and then you can erase and add darker, add pencil, or you can here, as I am doing here, add charcoal to darken up the areas. And the ridges of the ear that are closest to you are going to pull out that highlight, and so make sure to uh, you know to allow that light to hit and allow it to pop out. Here I'm just doing additive method with charcoal, which is fine too. Allows you to um, really kind of have to build up your layers themselves. Takes a little bit more time. Uh, and then here I'm doing it ear kind of straight on. So when they're straight on, you see kind of less into the ear, and remember, the inner part of the ear is towards the bottom of the ear, and the length of the lobe of the ear can vary, and its shape can kind of vary. Um, uh, they're not something that we look at a lot, so um, but if you kind of forget to give respect to the shapes of the ear, it can look a little awkward. It can look like it's kind of just meat hanging on the side of your head. So it helps to at least get a general idea of where the shadows, where the ridges of ears tend to be, and where the opening is tends to be the darkest, have the most shadow. Um, and hopefully, by doing cross contour first, you're able to kind of think of these shapes. Here, doing the eyes, I'm going to completely cover the paper again gray, so that I have a nice even tone. I take tissue and I wipe off the excess. Measure it out a little bit, and I'm just going to build that dark as much as possible. You don't want to have too much white showing in the eyes. Here I have probably a little bit too much. I'm going to decrease it as I build my dark. Here I'm going to draw this gentleman wearing glasses. Glasses are a little difficult. I have to admit, especially thicker frames like these that I can kind of see inside. So there's this highlight inside of them. But I try to draw them in first so that I can arrange my eyes correctly. When I'm doing kind of quicker sketches, I try to draw the face first and then add glasses, but specifically we're looking at these eyes. I want to lay them in like that. And and also, you notice, I'm pulling out all my highlights with the eraser. So it's a really quick and easy method. I strongly suggest it. It's as you work on those, and when we get to the portraits here in a moment. So let's look at some student examples of this assignment in the past. I'm looking for you to at least fill one page, but you can work on the back of a page if you need more space. The smaller that you work on these, the more difficult it is to get it correct. So make them a little bit bigger than you need to be. So you can see some of these examples broke it up on multiple pages. And also, look at some of these examples, especially in the mouth. One thing I didn't mention was the septum, which is this area between your lip and your nose. It's this ridge, and it can be more pronounced in some more than others. Men with facial hair, it's often covered, but it's still there. It's a little dip. And so, find someone in your house that you can photograph or take selfies. And once you've finished that, then move on to the second assignment, which is to draw some portraits. And so when I'm drawing portraits, I like to look at multiple angles. So I'm going to draw this gentleman from a few different angles. Some things to keep in mind is that the eyes are directly in the middle of the head. The nose is halfway between the eyes and the chin, and then the mouth in between there. And the ears tend to go from top of the eyes to the bottom of the nose. And when you're looking directly at the face, the face is like 5 eye widths wide, so there's one eye width in between the eyes. Here I'm looking at nearly profile. This is actually closer to 3/4 angle. This gentleman. So when you change the angle, you change everything. You change, where the ear is in comparison to the rest of the head. So I see one ear, and I see more of it, and I see less of the other eye. So work on some different angles. This is like a great angle to see one ear, some shape, but not have it too profile. And then lay in all of the lines, both north and south and east and west, left and right, diagonal. Build these lines, but give them curves. You're going to want a lot of curves in your lines. Straight lines aren't going to really give the shape of the human face. So I like to do some practice drawings. So this is what these are right now. So just little drawings fitting 3 and 4 portraits onto a page. I do this really to kind of just like lay out my composition, see which direction I like to take this portrait. And it also gives me a better understanding of what I'm looking at. So when I'm looking at the face forward, I have a better idea of how far that nose sticks out, how the shape of the cheeks are, shape of the lips, not just looking towards them, but where should those shadows be. I'm drawing hair. I don't draw every little hair. I try to build the shadows from underneath, and then allow highlights to lay on top. So here I'm just slightly changing his angle between that profile and straight on to slightly showing you different sides of his face. And I highly recommend doing this beforehand. Notice you gotta keep the eyes lower. Then often I find students put the eyes way up in the forehead, and the eyes need to be down lower in the middle, right in the middle of the head. As you tilt up and down, it will change, but when it's more straight on, want to keep it that way. And again, I'm doing all my lines kind of in this direction of the cross contour, but these I'm keeping really kind of quick and loose. I don't want to take too much time in the practice. It's really just kind of laying out the composition, getting my proportions correct, and building a little value. All right, so I'm going to draw this face. I like to start with this kind of understructure, kind of skull structure, and kind of lay out, measure where everything is in relation to one another. So these eyes are kind of turned in a different direction the rest of the face. So it's going to be kind of something that if I don't get correct will look a little off. So remember that her eyes are looking towards the camera, but her face is turned at an angle. So I'm going to build this up through this cross contour. I do a big general cross contour, almost like a globe, across the face. I like to keep eye level through the eyes straight, but I like to curve upwards when I'm above the eyes and curve downwards below the eyes. I kind of do this with the center line that runs through the nose. I kind of like to turn it based off of that axis as well. And when I go in with darkening the hair, I turn that pencil really on its side and just build up the value. And come back and maybe add some details to it later, but I want to keep it quick and loose, and want to allow for highlights into the hair as well. Darken up the glasses because they are kind of actually the darkest thing on her. And her jacket will be dark too, so fill in the collar and the jacket and where the jacket's kind of showing through the hair. And fix the glasses. The ridge is a little long. And clean up and add more shadows. Pull the shadows so that the dark side of the face really feels like it's in shade, and then that'll make the highlighted side of the face seem lighter in contrast. All right, so the next one will be a challenge with this curly hair. That's kind of why I showed it to you, but he's got great highlight hitting him, and allows for the face to really kind of have shape and pop out, curve out. All right, so again, I lay out all of my proportions and all of my features through some measurement. So take measurements, scale it to the page as you need, and look at your measurements. Make sure that they go both vertically and horizontally in the right amount of space or line length, whatever you're drawing. Kind of double check. Spend a lot of time looking and re-looking, and also take a step back. So I find that when I'm drawing faces, I kind of get convinced something is one place where maybe I'm too close to it. I have to take a step back and look at it and reevaluate and see what needs to be kind of pulled out or erased, and kind of sculpt it. Literally, you're kind of sculpting the face through this illusion of dark and light, and building up these lines. Still, this one's just cross contour, so I'm going to build up all my shading through line. I'm not really going to turn the pencil on its side, except for the hair. I'm going to have to, otherwise I could spend the whole week just drawing this hair. So you can see I've come in and shaded the darker side, and kind of gradiently up to the lighter side, and just that will give you the kind of the value that you need to show the light hitting it and creating a shadow and on the other side. So, but I'll probably come in here and give it a little bit more texture too. So, coming in, adding some facial hair, and there you have it. That's all I'm looking for the cross contour portraits. So this week we're doing 2 cross contour portraits. The following week we're going to be doing value portraits, but you can get a jump start on those if you get your cross contour portraits done first. So start with that, and then if you have time, go ahead and work ahead. It's pretty much the same idea as you see here. So this one is going to be a value drawing of this gentleman here with great hair and beard. Here I actually take the compressed charcoal and fill in the beard. It's going to save a lot of time, but leave a little highlight. Here I'm trying to fill in the hair quickly, but the darkest areas I'll come back with more layers. Even added the compressed charcoal in the sunglasses and kind of blended and smoothed that out. So it's a different texture from the rest of the face. And I started with a little bit of just charcoal. The beginning of this drawing, I started with charcoal just on my tissue, and as a medium base, and so I did a lot of erasing as well to pull out highlights, and just building up more and more dark. You can't push it too much. Just kind of reevaluating it and make a good strong light source from one side is going to make a more interesting drawing. In contrast to this one here, where this is a very flat light source. And I'm going to do this one just for cross contour, really because I'll do both. I'll do cross contour, and then I'll come in, erase some of the lines and blend out some of the lines. And but I'll start out with cross contour so I have a nice structural base underneath everything, and then so you can see here I'm curving the cheeks in multiple directions, and trying to make that curve where the cheeks meet the nose to protrude the nose out from the face and give that illusion that it's sticking out. And I have to do that with both line, but I also have to allow some highlight to pull through. Adding hair, facial hair. I tend to try to do this later, but I feel like I could be close to done with this, but now that I take a step back and look at it, I realize I'm going to need to pull some more of that shape out. And I'm going to have to mimic that myself, because this is such a flat lit photo, right? There's not much shadow. It's the kind of photo that you would use for identification purposes. So I'm going to have to mimic some shadow. I'm going to have to kind of create a different light source a little bit, just to give it some depth right now, because it's such a flat photograph. And when you're working from photography, drawing people from photography, it helps to come in and add this cross contour, because the photo is flat. It's not a person. Um, so don't get trapped in putting too much shadow in the nose like I did. I want to pull that down a little bit, but happens when you try to work and work and work it. So if you get frustrated with a certain point in your drawing, just take an eraser to it and wipe it out. And so I'm going to do that a couple times, because that's part of it. You aren't going to get it right exactly the first time. So it is kind of like working with clay. You have to kind of mold it and play with it. And so now I'm coming back and kind of reworking the hairline. I kind of pulled the hair too far around to the front of my face, and I gave my face the wrong shape. I need to kind of pull the beard down a little bit. And now here I'm just going to come in with the eraser and play around with pulling out the highlights and blending out everything, and make it a much softer drawing than what I started with in the base. So I'm going to do a drawing of my wife, which is going to be a little bit nerve-wracking because I don't want to get this wrong. And I already feel like I've got the mouth a little bit off, so I'm going to come back to it and try to see if I can get the eyes right. And I feel like the mouth is, it's difficult because her cheek on the side that's not facing us is also kind of peeking around her lip and underneath her nose. So I'm going to have to figure out how to kind of show that realistically without not looking too awkward. So all right, so I'll come back to those, the cheek and the mouth, and kind of lay out the rest of the body and the neck. And right now I'm just working all cross contouring. So this week all I'm really looking for is cross contour. You don't have to do a lot of shading, but try to go in and work with each of your facial features separately, but try to get them all placed out in the right place. So right now, this one, I feel like it's not placed right, so I have to kind of re-look at it, and trying to gauge what's going on. So if I get the eyes right, I think I can start to feel a little bit more comfortable about it. But this one's tricky. You're not going to get faces right the first time, so you're going to have to practice it out a little bit, and you notice I laid my roll of tape down to kind of hold my hand up. I try to keep something from laying my hand smudge the drawing, because with the cross contour I'm really just looking for lines. Lines can be a little bit harsh. The cross contour is a little bit harsh. It's not supposed to look as realistic as the value drawings. It's really just supposed to get like this form and structure and so forth, kind of giving this illusion of dimension. And kind of the style that you draw your cross contour is going to depend on how you want your lines to, proximity wise, how close you want them. If you want them kind of cross hatching, if you're trying to make it the lines become shadow, then they're going to go a lot closer to each other. So I'm still trying to figure out what's okay. So here I'm reevaluating. I need to pull her mouth out a little bit more. Right now it looks incorrect. I have to kind of change it up because it doesn't look like her mouth. I think there needs to be more space between the nose and the lips. And pull her eyes down too. So actually erase her eyes, bring them further down, and then just gonna move on. This one's not as good as I'd like it to be, but sometimes you have to uh, move on to the next one. So this one is a drawing of my father-in-law, who was here this week. Um, so got some photos of him, um, and you can see him building up the cross contour from uh, the nose out, and here I'm going to have a lot more lines because he's as we age, we get more lines and we get more creases, and so you have to kind of show that. I'm going to use compressed charcoal in the hair just to save time, and really, um, don't get too wrapped up in the hair. I don't need to see every single hair. So come in, kind of rework that nose. And when you're drawing profile, you're really seeing the silhouette and the shape of the face. So, and here add a little darker background, which is going to really pop it out, pop him out forward, and that's fine. You can go ahead and do that if you want. Helps set him off in the from the picture plane. Come back and work out some details. And here I'm going to use white pastel and some more charcoal and really darken it up and kind of work out details, work out some of those wrinkles and give it a little more character. So, that's another example. How you take that cross contour and build it up into value. So I'm going to do another drawing of him. So this one I'm going to do with pencil, and I'm really going to just try to focus not so much on cross contour, but actually just building up value, um, through lines that are kind of more shading lines. But I'm still going to have to, keep the curvature of the line, um, going in that direction. So notice there I decided to bring the collar up a little higher. And when you're working with pencil, you can forgive yourself. You can draw over top of it, and or erase if you need to, and build up on top of it. So here I'm just building up all the shadows just through kind of laying in layers, building it up, and then also pulling out a lot of highlights. So I didn't like the eyes, so just go in and erase them and start over, and eventually, it'll blend in like it never happened. But again, I want to pull out, kind of get a little dramatic with pulling out some of these highlights, just so it has a little bit more oomph to it. It has a little more contrast, and it's a little bit more distinguished than the photograph. So that's one of the things you can do with your drawings is you actually, drawing is kind of the original Photoshop. You get to play with your values. You can play with your levels. You can play with pulling out, darkening different areas, and lighting up other areas in such a way that does give it more contrast and make it a little bit more interesting than the original photograph, yet still retaining the qualities of the subject that you're drawing. All right, so almost done with this one. Just pulling out a little bit more with the highlights, making sure I've got all of those. And so now we'll look at some examples of past students' work. First, we'll look at work that students did in class of other classmates. And so working live, we do 10 and 20-minute poses. And so these early ones you're looking at are the 10-minute poses. And really suggest that you try to do this at home to warm up. If you set a timer for 10 minutes, or let's say 15 minutes, uh, and try to um, get a whole drawing done that fills the page by turning your pencil sideways, by drawing with your shoulder and your elbow rather than your knuckles and your wrist. I think you'll be able to get a quicker sense. You'll start to have lines that feel more human. Um, so at the beginning of the semester, we started with very rigid straight lines and rulers. Um, doing the architecture, the perspective drawings, but now kind of reached the point where you're not using a ruler whatsoever, except to measure, and you're not having any straight lines being bold and visible. So at this point, it's best to be very fluid and loose and free um, when drawing the human, especially from life. Um, you have this opportunity to uh, kind of be more gestural, and as you see here, these ones done with charcoal. And then as you're going to be doing, you're going to be working from photo, most likely, unless you can have family members or guests um, who will pose for you. And the other thing that you can do is get a mirror and draw a self-portrait from a mirror. Um, but these are all, as you can see, photos, drawings from photos, and what you get from drawing from photos is a bit more accuracy. You can measure it a lot easier. You can really see the tonal range. So um, take your photos and make them black and white. It'll be a lot easier. And if you have a value finder, use that so that you can see where really push the black. If you have a drawing that has a lot of black in it, use charcoal. That's how you're going to get the richest black. Um, your pencils can only get you maybe 70% black, but here you can see the charcoal drawings really have a lot of contrast, and um, tend to have this feeling that's a little bit more human. There's a little bit more. Uh, it seems a little bit softer um, than graphite. Graphite tends to feel like a line, but you can still blend out graphite. It's just um, something about having that dark black can really make things seem a bit more natural, or that it is the full range from black to white that our minds and our eyes expect. Also pay attention to fabric, any fabric that your subject is wearing. It's part of the drawing as well. So, like hair, it has folds, has highlights and shadow. And feel free to have do a drawing with a subject that has glasses on, sunglasses on, or even if you're wearing a mask right now, go ahead and do that too. So good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to email me this week.